I am so excited. Thank you for everyone for being here, for inviting me. This is just an unreal opportunity. So I'm just very excited about this. As Vance mentioned, my name is Del Spoonmore. I'm one of the co-founders From Seed to Spoon. We started this app at the beginning ourselves, but we have other people that have come in and helped us now. And they've helped us build something that really, we had no idea when we started that this could be a reality, but it is. So our app will help you grow 70 different foods. It'll give you customized planting dates that are based on where you live. We find the nearest weather station. I'll tell you about that more here in a minute. It helps you identify what pests are in your garden and know what to do about them. It has everything you need to know about how to grow food. But really, what I want to talk about today is what led to this and why we did all this and why we're still doing this. And for me, it started back here. This was 2008. And my daughter, Brooklyn, can you stand up for a second? She was born, and this is her. And when she was born, it was a light bulb moment in my life, because before then, I had been controlled by this thing that I now know is anxiety and depression and panic attacks. But before then, I had no idea what was going on. And I had let some of those issues, get to I'd reached 340 pounds. I had a lot of health issues. I had panic attacks. I didn't know what they were called then, but I knew that every now and then the world would become too overwhelming and I would have to go in my closet and just cry, and I had no idea what was happening. And that was just kind of the world I lived in. And I didn't tell anyone about this. No one knew it was happening, no one in my life. And I felt like the path, with having a child, I had an obligation to be different for my child. I couldn't go on living the way I was and raise a kid and be successful. So I started down the path of trying to lose weight. And I lost about 120 pounds in about 9 months, but I got off track. I got addicted to marathon running and cycling, and I was spending all my time away from home. So I started doing this because I wanted to be a better dad, but I was never there. So I wasn't the dad I wanted to be. And this led me down a bit of a dark road, so I ended up going on the Rachel Ray show to be featured for weight loss. And I let all of this kind of get to my head, and I ended up crashing. And no matter how much weight I lost, I still had this demon with me. It still was taking control of me. And then, thank God, the universe led me to my wife, Carrie. She's here today as well. And she's a nurse, and she is the first person in my life that helped me recognize that this thing that was happening to me was called anxiety, depression, and panic attacks, and there were things that I could do to help with it. And there were things specifically I was doing to cause it, and she started help me log, like what I was eating and what I was drinking. And then we figured out that there was a direct correlation to certain foods, and the lack of certain foods was causing this. And this all led to this book called The Depression Cure that talked about how I could overcome some of these issues with natural methods, without having to take the medications, because I didn't like the way those made me felt. And it all basically pointed to, starting a garden. Everything on this list pointed to the idea of we should start a garden, because it was really expensive to eat healthy, and the garden would help me be outside more and would help me get more exercise. And that was basically, let me talk about why we want to start a garden. First of all, we were going to save money. A lot of these foods we were buying were really expensive. The quality of the food wasn't what we wanted. I wanted to get more exercise, and I wanted to be more mindful, being connected to nature. And that was how this happened. So we started a garden, and I'm a little autistic, and I get obsessed about things, and this is kind of the thing I've been obsessed about for a while. And it took over my life, and what happened was I found relief for the first time in my life from this thing that had been haunting me. My panic attacks were pretty much gone when I did things the right way. Now, they come right back if I'm not out in my garden enough and if I'm not doing the other stuff. But for the first time in my life, I had something I could do that would make it stop. And that was really, what led to some of the ideas of From Seed to Spoon, because this was 2015 when we started, and in 2016, so the problem we had with growing food was that it could be overwhelming. Where do you start? There are a lot of things I had to memorize and calculate as well. There were bugs everywhere. There was no mobile app to make this easy. I was carrying around these books in the garden. I would leave one out there, it starts raining, my book's ruined. It's just a lot of frustrations, and that was what led into 2016, the day of the election. And we were waiting in line to vote, and I was so aggravated at my choices I guess is the best way to describe it. I just didn't want to be there, and I was like, what, is this reality? And they were playing on the TV a replay of the Cubs and the Indians, and I was watching that thinking, why can't it be like that? Because that whole week, everyone was just like nice to each other, and like even the Indians fans were like happy the Cubs won. It was just like this utopia of like, why can't it always be that way? And I felt this question of, what are you doing to make it that way? And it stopped me in my tracks because I was doing nothing. I was complaining on Twitter. That's all I was doing about it. And that was where the idea from Seed to Spoon became something we actually started doing. Because up until then, I had this idea of we really wanted to have, we wanted to make a mobile app to make it easier for people to grow food. But I didn't, so that's where the idea came from. And that's where we started with November 2016. I did not know how to code at the time, but I'd worked in software development my entire career. I basically grew up at the Alamode University. Right out of high school, I went straight to Alamode. And I learned, I had so many different jobs there, and I learned so many different things about how to build software. And I've always been gravitated to software anyway. Even as a kid, I spent all of my time taking apart video games and trying to figure out how to make them work different and how to make it try to actually be good at those video games. And doing things like that, and it was just this lifetime of feeling like, we could make a mobile app, but I don't know how to code right now, but we got to start somewhere. Let's start just by showing people how we grow food. So that was where the idea started. The day of the election, I bought seedtospoon.com, seedtospoon.net. We started our WordPress site, and I started just making a bunch of videos out in my garden, and I still feel ridiculous when I'm out there like making videos and stuff. And now I've got other people to record them for me. Thankfully, I feel less awkward, but still, that's where we started. And just started putting out a lot of blogs and videos and just started showing everyone how we grow food. And also, we started building user stories. So this was really where the development of the mobile app started. So it was just an Evernote or Trello or something back then. Just started building what we knew the app would need to be. But we still didn't really know what the app should be then. And that's where we started, finding out, so we knew what problems we had with gardening, but we didn't know if there was the same problems other people had, and what other problems that we could solve for other people. And that's when we started doing events. So it started with kids events, and we would go to local nurseries, and we would put on kids gardening festivals, is what we called them. And we made them completely free, and any kid could come out, and they get to bring home a seed that they got to plant themselves. We had worm races. We had all sorts of different things that kids got to do. But it also got us an opportunity to talk to those parents, too. What would it take for you to start growing food? Why don't you grow food now? And questions like that. And all of that is what led into, the ideas for the app. So I continued to shoot a lot of garden videos. This is kind of an example of the kind of stuff we had, just me walking around in the garden talking about stuff. I still have no idea why anyone wants to watch this. I hate my videos. Like, I don't get it. And then the summer of 2017, I'd really fallen in love with gardening, so much so that I was ready to throw away every computer I had and go be a farmer. And that was kind of the idea was, I really wanted to go just be an organic farmer and just do that, just like run an urban farm, because I had learned some of the downsides of being on a computer too much, and I hadn't really learned balance yet, so I was like, well, I'll just throw them away. And I spent that whole summer basically pretending I was a farmer. I hung out with a lot of farmers. I spent the whole time in my backyard. And this video here, I was shooting a video about how I keep my plants watered in 100-degree heat, but I forgot to keep myself watered, and I ended up in the hospital. And I felt like it was a bit of a sign of maybe you learned all that computer stuff for a reason, and you shouldn't just not do it. There's something larger you should be doing, and that is what led to this lunch that I had with these guys. So these are the members of the team that I work with at Surgical Care Affiliates. Some of them are here right now. Chase and Justin were here for back then, and I was out at lunch with them, and I was just complaining, really. I'd just gotten out of the hospital, I was just like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I really wanted to make a mobile app, but I couldn't talk to any of my friends into helping me build it. And I was just at this place where I was just, complaining. And Luke, the guy on the third over, and he's always been an inspirational person throughout my career that's pushed me to be better. And he just told me, Dell, you can do this. There's no reason why you can't learn how to code. You're building automated tests right now with Protractor. It's not that different, and we'll help you. And Justin, who's here today, we came back from that lunch, and he came over to my desk, and he got me set up with Ionic. And that's basically where the story of our app began. So I started obsessively reading everything I could about Ionic and downloading sample apps and tearing them apart and trying to figure out how they work, and bugging these guys every single day with a million questions. And just trying, I've watched a lot of Pluralsight videos. I've always had a hard time learning in environments with other people or with distractions, because again, back to the autistic stuff, like I just have a hard time focusing in those environments. And so Pluralsight was a huge tool for me, where I could just learn in the comfort of my own office. And I started binging Pluralsight videos. The Angular Getting Started video with Deborah Kurata, I've watched it like 10 times now. I would go through it until the point where it didn't make sense to me anymore, and then I would start over at the beginning and just work my way back up again until I got to that point that was confusing before, and now suddenly that part was easy. And I just kept going through that cycle, and over the course of 3 months, that's what I did with all of that time that before was going to playing video games and watching every TV show that everyone talked about. Like, that's all I did with that time before. And not that there's anything wrong with that time. I think there's a time and a place to do stuff like that. But for me, where I was in my life, I felt like I shouldn't be obsessing over video games anymore. And that time needed to go to something else. And that's where I started pulling from to learn this stuff. So it was a lot of nights and weekends, and tuck the kids into bed, and then I start working on stuff. And I basically, it just became my whole world. My Twitter became nothing but following people, a lot of people in this room, just reading everything they wrote about software development, and following people like Wes Bos and Syntax is a podcast that I love, and I just started binging that when I'm out in the garden. And Fun Function became what I watched every morning when I woke up. It was like an hour of Fun Function on YouTube. And that just became my whole world. And over the course of 3 months, we built something that we were comfortable calling a beta. I guess, it was a prototype. And I guess this is where I want to mention this. It wasn't just me that was building this in this time. My wife, Carrie, is a nurse. And she had no technical knowledge, or not, sorry, I misrepresented you there, no technical background before now. And she jumped in immediately and started building out the data. So all of our data is in Firebase. It's all just a JSON, type structure. She learned all of that. She started learning some HTML. She jumped in and she wrote every piece of data as far as vegetables in the app came through her fingers. Yeah, she's awesome. And she has more lines of code than anyone in the app. And not just her, but my kids. So Brooklyn and Daphne, they're here today, and I wanted them to be here because they spent a lot of time working hard on this app. They're our QA team. So when we put out new vegetables, they go through, they tap on every single link, make sure it works. They do all of that. Whenever the images at the top of each vegetable, I taught them how to use Adobe Spark Post, which is what we use for a lot of our graphics, and they went through and created all of them. Like, we had to change them from one type to another. They did it all in one night. It was amazing how quickly they learned. So this really became a family thing, whereas before it was kind of, Daddy's off doing coding again, but now it kind of came into it, and now they started coming into it, and now it became this family thing that really, started to take life. This really, Seed to Spoon would not have happened if it would not have been for Carrie coming in and doing all that work she did, because I was so burned out on talking about vegetables, and I kind of still am. Like, I go talk at like gardening conferences and stuff, and I just do not want to talk about the vegetable part. Like, just go look at the app. I wrote it all in there. Like, just, But, this was our first release, version 1 of our release. And I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I want you to just kind of look at how it looks now, because this is really where things started to evolve from us. Version 1 was just get all this data out and see what people care about. So things were not necessarily, we didn't spend a lot of time on the UI making it perfect. We just got things out, and then we transitioned into finding out if this worked, if people liked this, if this is what people needed. And that's what the marketing, or what Winter for us was all about. So it started with social media for us. We already had a bit of a following from the YouTube stuff and all of that, so we were able to tap into that. And we started doing a lot of live streams. We have so many videos going out, so I feel like our whole life is documented at this point. But we just started just talking on social media about what we're building and asking for feedback and asking for people to tell us if it works for them. And then we started doing more local events. So it wasn't quite like, we didn't do like the kids events anymore. We started to transition into, I reached out to every home and garden show I could find. And luckily, those people were awesome, and they invited us to come speak. And we got in at the 2 largest home and garden shows in Oklahoma City. So for those weekends, I took our RV to the state fairgrounds, and I parked it on Friday, and I spent the entire weekend there. And I just followed people around. I chased them with my iPad, like, look at this, and I just talked to people, thousands of people the whole weekend. I lived there. And through that, we learned a lot about what, when you're showing someone your app and you're showing it in front of them, it becomes pretty easy to start like reading their eyes, and you can see like what they're confused about, or when you're explaining something, you see something that doesn't quite make sense. So our marketing message like evolved like tenfold that one weekend of just trying things over and over. And then through each interaction that we had where we could see that something didn't quite make sense, it taught us what we can go back on the UI to improve. So also I want to mention here the App Store reviews, because this is how we really started to gain traction. I believe out of all the things that we did, the App Store reviews probably drove our growth more than anything. And the way that we got those was, one, provide a good value for them, like put out a good app, you know. But if you do that, the strategy we have for reviews was prompting them after 5 opens. So if we prompted them on the first open, they don't know if they like us yet. It's annoying, right? Like, but after 5 opens, now it comes up, and the text wasn't like, please leave a review, whatever. It was very candid, like, I don't like having to ask you for this, or something like that, you know, but please leave a review. It helps us get traction. And that was really what drove a lot of our growth, because it seemed like overnight we were going from, when you search for growing food in the App Store, we were way down the list, or gardening, or whatever you search for, we were way down the list. But then it started to climb because these reviews started to come in. And that was really key to our growth. I also want to talk about our approach to the App Store in general, because I think a lot of apps take for granted release notes. And I think release notes are a way that you can really make an impact with your user, because people actually read that. Not everyone, but there are a lot of people that really read release notes, especially if they're looking at an app. They want to go see, you know, how updated it's been, what they're working on. So there's an opportunity right there where you can actually talk to your users with your real voice and have an impact without having to, you know, if you put something on Facebook, you have like an 8% chance of your audience seeing that unless you pay Facebook to show it to them. It's ridiculous. It's the same way with pretty much all the social media networks, but with those reviews, you have a direct line into them. So we're very conversational with our release notes. We're talking about what we're working on. We're talking about why, all of that kind of stuff, and we're saying it in plain English. So this was the version that we released after all that feedback. So a couple of things that we learned from the feedback was, one, it was hard for people to know when to plant things. We had like 6 weeks before the spring frost was when we told them to plant something. They don't know when the spring frost is. Like, it was very difficult for them to calculate it. So one of the first things we wanted to do was add in the ability to calculate your planting dates based on your location. So the first version that I built called this API that worked like 80% of the time, which was very frustrating. And I was trying to find like another API, and I was feeling like I was so in over my head. And this is where Justin really started to come in, because I was telling Justin about this problem, and then it seemed like overnight, basically reverse engineered the other API, found the public data for it, scraped it all, and then stored it locally in our app, so we don't even have to hit a web server anymore. It just loads it based on their GPS location. And that was when I was like, okay, like, I really got to get this guy working on it full time. You know, like, what can we do to get him doing more on it? So that was whenever Justin came in and became a part of the team. So, and then ever since then, he's been with us. You know, we both work full time, so this is very much a side hustle, nights and weekends type thing. But he really provided a layer that Seed to Spoon needed of, you know, that really good technical knowledge. Because if you go look at my garden right now, I think this is a good way of explaining it. My raised beds, the way I built them, they're kind of crooked. They work, you know, but they're kind of like, it's not what you want to like mass produce. Well, that's how my code ends up sometimes, where I like have these ideas, and I'm like, I'll throw this together, and I can get the UI looking really nice, but like the back-end code like needs someone with more experience to come in and work on it, right? And that's what Justin was for me. And I want to mention this because I think it's important to know your weaknesses and to build a team around them. So, you know, since then I've gotten better at some of that back-end stuff, but I still don't enjoy it. Like, I really like building front-end stuff and user interactions, and like, that's what I like. I love spending a whole day on an animation. That's just that's where I like to spend my time. And knowing your weaknesses and building around them is crucial if you want to start building a team. Because, especially with a startup, you don't have very many people you can bring in, so you've got to make sure the people you do bring in complement things you're not strong in. Carrie does that for me, well, with my life, but also with Seed to Spoon, in that she is a very consistent and reliable person. Like, if you text her, you will get a text back like within an hour or two. Me, I may disappear for a week or two where you don't hear back from me because I'm like off in my own little world. And I know that about myself, and that's why Carrie drives a lot of that side of Seed to Spoon. And so I think it's important to know your weaknesses and to build around them. But also you got to start telling people your goals. Because if I would have stayed silent about Seed to Spoon, or if I wouldn't have been talking about the things we wanted to do and been excited about it, I wouldn't have been able to talk anyone into helping me build it, because it took that passion for someone else to grip onto to understand why they should join. So that was the spring, and then this was our growth. So when we were released in January, we had no idea what to expect, and then this growth kind of hit us out of April and May, and we didn't release the app with any idea really of making a business out of it. It was really just we wanted to put out an app and just see where it went. But the idea of making a business out of this started to become a reality for the first time around April or May, I guess around that time. And that's when our focus turned in the summer. So we already had Amazon affiliate links throughout the app. So if you look at a banana pepper or something like that, we're going to show you products that are related to that. So maybe plant steaks or something else like that, seeds for it. And then if you tap on that and then go to Amazon to buy it, we get 8% of that purchase, and then every other purchase is made with that tab for the next 24 hours. So that was our business model kind of when we released, of just like, this is at least a way to get some money coming in. It's not brought in a lot. I think our top end was like $500 or $600 a month in April or May. It let us have a pretty good marketing budget those months, which is what we've done. We've taken all of the money that's come in so far and then put it back into marketing. So we started building a store in the summer, and this is really, we started to get off track a little bit because the store got pretty overwhelming. Not just like Stripe makes it really easy to actually charge someone. That's not the hard part. The scary part is now once you charge someone, now you own that customer data for one. You have this whole it's an order with a user. So if we sell them something, then I want to make sure the process is perfect for if they want to return it, or if there's an issue with it or anything like that. And that was something that was not something we could commit to while having full-time jobs. But we didn't really realize this until we were a couple weeks into building it, and we got off track, trying to build a store. And I think really the lesson from that was we weren't ready to build a store yet. And so through the summer, we were struggling with some of that, and eventually we landed back on the idea of, software is what we need to be building. That is what we enjoy building. That's what we're good at building. Let's focus on software. And we started building out a pro version of our software. And we started then. I'll talk more about that here in a few minutes. But more than anything, the summer for us was about reconnecting back with our purpose. Because I think, especially the way we felt was, it was very exciting, during the spring, of the endless opportunity of what could this be, and I think a lot of that blinded us in a way, and we got off track of what we're actually trying to do, which is build software that makes it ridiculously easy to grow food, and not build software that charges credit cards and does all this stuff. Like, that wasn't what we should have been doing. So we got back on track with the pro software, but really in the summer, we took vacations. And that's what I want to talk about here, is you've got to understand that you can, like me in particular, I try and push through, work way too much, and then I get to a breaking point. And that's where we were over the summer. And we packed up our RV and we just started traveling. We went to Arizona and Grand Canyon, went to New Mexico, and I just spent time reconnecting back, with my family and back to why we were doing this to begin with. And then while we were on vacation, an opportunity came up that honestly changed our lives in a way. So has anyone heard of the Thunder Launchpad? Raise your hand if you've heard of the Thunder Launchpad. Awesome. So I had not heard about it at all until I got this email about it. And that, long story short, the Oklahoma City Thunder partnered with MidFirst, and then Stitch Crew is really the organization that drives this, to help foster tech innovation in Oklahoma. And what they've done is they've put together a program. It's a 12-week program where every week you go in, you meet with a mentor, and then also they have advisors, they have free legal services, they have $30,000 in Google credits that you get day one when you start the program. Really, they're trying to have a hit come out of Oklahoma City. That's their goal, right? The Dodgers helped get Twitter off the ground with doing this, so like that's kind of the model. And their goal is to help Oklahoma City get on the map as far as tech innovation is concerned. And this opportunity is something that I did not know about, and I want everyone here, this is one of my big goals in this talk, was that everyone in this room understands the opportunity that's out there. Because you don't have to have a finished product or even a working product to get invited. You really just have to be passionate about a problem you're trying to solve that's out there, and you need to have something you're working towards. But this is, when we started Seed to Spoon, there was no idea that this was possible. And I don't know if it would have changed anything, but I want everyone else to know that this is a possibility, that you don't have to be everything. You just have to get something going, and then you go to them, and they will help you. And they've helped us in a number of ways. You know, like we've had a hard time figuring out how to make a business out of this. They've helped with that. They've helped with so many different ways I can't really go all the way into, but I do want to talk about how they led us into this. So when we first started, you know, I mentioned that we started because of anxiety and depression, because we wanted to grow foods that helped with anxiety and depression. And Carrie and I, a few months ago, were going through a content review session where we're just looking at each vegetable, looking at the text, seeing if it still makes sense, if we've learned anything new, if there's a better way to phrase it. And we were trying to sell arugula, and arugula sucks. It tastes terrible. I can't stand it, but it has a lot of health benefits. And we were talking about like folic acid and vitamin K and all this stuff, and we both kind of looked at each other and we had this moment of, no one knows what that means. And I think we both saw this in our head at the exact same time. And this is the result of that, is that, you know, Carrie helped me understand what I could grow to help with my anxiety and depression. And I feel like what we've built is her way of helping you do the same with whatever you have in your life, basically. Because you can choose from 26 different health conditions. And they're not all health problems. One of them's keto. So they're just, you know, health-related, I think is what we're calling them. But once you choose the health condition, it will show you the things that help with that. And this is really the new direction we're hoping to take Seed to Spoon, where it's not just about the growing, it's about why you should be growing, because that's what got me hooked. It was that first time that I tasted spinach out of the garden, and it was unlike anything I'd ever had from the store, where it was this cool and crisp leaf, and it like almost tasted like almond-y, and it was like, I gotta have another one of those. And I had never had that experience with any vegetable in my life before then, and it wasn't just the taste of it, because I learned that, you know, I come to find that it was, with that added taste came added nutrition. And then that is what made it to where I didn't go cry in my closet every other week. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, because it changed my life, and it gave me a way to actually fight back against, you know, these things I've been battling. And that's what we feel like you can do with our app now for whatever it is that you're fighting or whatever it is that you're trying to do. We're hoping this will help you, because when you first open the app right now, this will be out, by the way, this weekend. So if you download the app right now, you're not going to see this. We're rolling out this weekend. But when you download the current version of the app, there's like 80 vegetables in there. It's like, where do I start, right? And that's kind of how where we were when we started. But now, with this feature, you'll be able to see the exact things you can grow that will help you. And this is really some of the ideas we have around how to drive, you know, people using the app more often. So the next few versions that we're working on are going to make it to where you can see the 3 to 5 things that help best for that condition. And then it becomes a game where if you grow it to completion and take a picture of it, you get a badge. And that's kind of what we're hoping to do to drive some more of that type of thing. So this is what we have now, but I want to talk about the My Garden stuff. So we mentioned before, I mentioned before the Pro version that we were working on, and this is what that's going to be. So the Pro version of our app is going to let you log things, and then more important than that, it's going to tell you what to do. It's not really about you logging things, it's about the app telling you what you need to do in order to grow things. So right now, if you use our app, you've got to go in there and look at the dates, you've got to remember when the date is to plant, you've got to do all this stuff manually. This is going to let you start marking what you want to plant, and then once you've marked what you want to plant, you're going to get a push notification saying, you know, a month before, it's time to plant seeds for spinach in a month, tap here to buy your seeds, like that type of thing. And then once you mark that you planted, now we guide you through everything. So this hypothetical spinach here was planted in August, and we're going to show like the estimated seed sprouting date, so when you can expect that to sprout, when the estimated harvest date is. We'll have a lot more cards in here as well, but you know, we're going to do things like if it rains, we'll automatically pull in that rainfall amount. And we're going to use this section here in the middle to drive notifications for when you should water. And if there's a pest, like if there's an aphid spotted within 20 miles of you, you get a notification. Aphids were spotted near you. Like that's kind of the idea, is to start driving that interaction so that you don't have to know what to do. The app starts to tell you, and that's what we're hoping will make it to where people actually start growing food. Because what we've seen through our analytics is people will generally, they'll download the app, they'll spend about 6 minutes and 17 seconds on it, and then they'll open it, I don't know, like every week or so, like every week or two, but they're not using it to grow. It's clear. I think what's happening is they're looking at it and they're thinking, if I like the idea of growing food. If I ever wanted to grow, I'll use this. They scroll through the pictures. They dream of the world they would garden, right? And we're trying to actually make them garden. So that we're hoping that's what this My Garden feature does. And then also, hopefully, this provides a path for monetization for us so we can start doing this full time, because that's really what we'd like to be able to do, is start devoting all of our time to this and go full time on it. And really, like to a larger extent, our big goals for this are, first of all, we really want to have a teaching farm. I think kids in school should have an opportunity to go to a place where they're actually growing food and there's actually animals there. They can see how it works. I want to have a teaching farm that's free to any school to come to. That's really what Seed to Spoon, what we want it to get to is that. So I want to end it with some parting advice. So the first thing is that decide what to be and go be it. This is a line from the Avett Brothers, one of my favorite bands. And I think this is so crucial because when we started, it was scary. I mean, like I was going on YouTube and like filming these ridiculous videos, posting it to everyone I know. Like, like that was really scary. And it held me back from doing it for a while. And now I feel really silly that I was ever scared about that. Like you have to stop caring what people think. You have to decide what to be and then go be it with every ounce that you have and not worry about what people think and not, it's just a mental shift you have to make. And for me, I kind of felt like I had to because that leading up to that, that point in time of the election, like kind of, that year was one of the roughest years of my life. In January, my wife almost died. We lost a baby and she almost died. And a few months after that, I lost my grandfather. And it really made me start to think about my life and what I wanted it to be and what I wanted to do with my life. And that's where I was, leading into that moment of the election. You've got to decide what you want to do and then go do it. But you've got to also know it's a marathon and not a sprint. And this is something I've made mistakes on time and time again with this, where I forget that this is a long-term thing. You can't sprint towards your goal or you're going to get gassed out. I think automation is something that we did not do enough of in the beginning, but it's been crucial to sustainability of this. What I mean by that specifically is with social media. If you are on the hook for manually posting to Instagram 4 times a day and Twitter 4 times a day and Facebook twice and having a Facebook group that you also post into and then sharing your posts into like 30 other gardening groups, and like if you're manually doing that, it will make you go insane, I promise, it will. There's so many tools out there that help with this. Tailwind was here today. Their tool is awesome for Pinterest automation. I use Buffer for Instagram and Facebook and all of that. Spend the money on those tools because it is well worth it, and it saved us so much time and frustration. Delegation, too, is not something I'm good at, but I had to really learn how to say, I need help with this, or have someone take something over. If you're going to do a startup or try and do something on your own, you have to rely on other people around you. You can't do it on your own. And then, lastly, remember your why. This is something I talked about earlier. You've got to remember why you're doing it, because if it becomes about money, your passion will die. At least that's how it was for me. It can't be about money. It's got to be about why you're doing this, and that has to be what you bring yourself back to. The book Start With Why was crucial for me. That's a book I read, I don't remember when it was, but that's really helped me out. I also want to mention another book, really anything by Gary Vaynerchuk, if you want to learn how to do social media strategy and marketing. I read everything he writes when it comes to that and basically follow that model. But this is what I want to end with. So code the change you want to see in the world. This is basically the idea in that, we live in an unprecedented age where at the click of a button, you can get in front of the App Store and you're in front of the whole world. And no one is holding you back from being able to share your message or to make a difference. No one. And all it takes is hard work and hustle to get to the top search result for whatever it is you're trying to make an impact on. And that's where the opportunity is. And this is unprecedented in human history, at least as far as I've read. Typically up until now, there's always someone, some middleman, someone you have to go through. But right now, there's no one. You get an app in the App Store, you're in front of the whole world. And with that, there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, depending on what it is you're passionate about. And maybe you don't have something that you are directly passionate about right now. But there's probably someone around you that is. And maybe they're not a tech person. And maybe they're a good business person. They need a tech mind to help them. And in the Launchpad right now, there's 2 or 3 companies that are looking for a CIO. There are people everywhere around you that have ideas and have visions and have things that they want to do. And hopefully you're one of them. Maybe you're one of them. But the point is, we have to all actually start doing things in order for this world to get different or to be different. Because ultimately, the reason why we started From Seed to Spoon was because when I was waiting in line to vote, I couldn't sit back and let the future of my kids be determined by the Clintons and the Trumps of the world. I had to start doing something myself. And when we started, I thought, what could I do? I mean, who am I? What could I possibly do? And I still feel that way half the time, but clearly we've been able to make a difference. 60,000 people have had the opportunity to learn how to grow food now from downloading our app. And we've had countless people reach out to me and say that their lives were changed from our videos. There was a lady that was at a talk I did at a gardening conference last month, and she said that our videos, her house burned down and she wasn't going to garden again, but because of our videos, she started growing again, and it changed her health conditions that she was having. Like that kind of stuff is so powerful. That's what keeps me going. And even if you don't have something you want to build, there's so many opportunities to help young people learn how to code. I talk to high schools, and I tell them, right now, if you're in high school, you can be learning how to code, and when you graduate, you can make decent money the day you graduate. And I don't push people out of college, but I just want them to understand the opportunities that are out there. And that's really what I want the message to be today, is that we can code the change that we want to see in the world. I really believe that. And if everybody starts coding towards the change they want to see, we can actually make change. I think I've seen people in this room, there's people all throughout this room that have doing it. I see Matt Woods. By the way, follow him if you want to learn how to do marketing and stuff. I'm serious, because I watch his videos all the time. Carmen is doing wonderful things. There's people all throughout this room that are doing great things. And if we all start doing it, no one can stop us. I really believe that. And that's all I had. Thank you. I do want to mention, if you'd like to help us out, please just tell your friends about the app. If you hear of anyone that wants to grow food, send them our way. We've got everything they need. Yes, questions. I'm sorry. What's that?
How can I add to the database?
Add plants to the database?
No, how can I add more plant information to the database? If there's something that I don't find.
So if you see something that you don't find, just email us. And Carrie, as soon as we get that email saying there's not something, she drops everything she's doing. I'm trying to Carrie, there's going to be an endless supply of vegetables, I promise. But she's like, hold the baby, I got to do this. So if you just email that, just don't do it on a Friday night, because it ruins our date night. Any other questions about anything? Cool. Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate this opportunity, and if I can help at all in any way, please reach out to me on Twitter. Any way at all, seriously. I really want to help. I want to help. Thank you.